unlawful behavior and disregard of human rights.
The use of power by the Israeli army against the Palestinian demonstrators in Gaza.
I give the floor to United Nations Watch.
Mr. President, I was a British commander in Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan and have extensive experience dealing with rioting crowds whipped up by armed terrorists. I have observed the violent demonstrations on the Gaza border many times from the front lines. Unlike you, Mr. Chairman, and your Commission who have never been there. These are outrageous efforts to break through the fence and slaughter Jewish civilians. Hamas also set out to induce the IDF to kill Gaza civilians, to instigate global condemnation of Israel. The IDF took every possible step to avoid Palestinian casualties, but using live ammunition as a last resort was the only way they could defend their own people. The Commission grotesquely perverts this reality. I accuse this Council of handing a deliberately biased mandate to the Commission intended to defame Israel. I accuse this Commission of misrepresenting Hamas's actions, twisting organised violence into peaceful protest. I accuse this Commission of acting as an instrument of Hamas terrorism by falsely accusing Israel of crimes against humanity, by validating terror tactics and by inciting killing and violence. I accuse this Commission of betraying the Palestinian people by failing to condemn their Hamas oppressors who, as we meet today, are firing on genuine peaceful protesters in Gaza. I accuse this Commission of wicked prejudice against the Jewish state and its army in a manner calculated to undermine its ability to defend itself. Greater violence is planned by Hamas in a few days. Violence this Council could restrain by condemning Hamas for its murderous actions and rejecting this outrageous report. I appeal to every member state to repudiate it. If you do not, you will have the blood of Palestinians and Israelis on your hands.
What the Arabs have done, what the Arab countries collectively have done, and what the Palestinian leadership have done, is far worse than failure. It is betrayal. It's betrayal, it's abuse, it's using them as cannon fodder. It's turning them from being decent, ordinary human beings, wanting to prosper, wanting to have freedom, wanting to live in peace in their territory, into being simply weapons of war in a century-long war between the Arab world and the Jewish national homeland. And they have been these benighted Palestinian people. And I know many of them. I've seen their suffering. I've spoken to them. I've witnessed their suffering firsthand. They have been cast off and abused. They are simply bullets to be fired from an Arab gun. How have the Arabs abused the Palestinians? Well, since the creation of the State of Israel and before, going right the way back to the Balfour Declaration, the Arabs and then subsequently the Palestinian leadership, when Palestine was invented as a people, as a potential country, the Palestinian leaders have rejected every single opportunity to create a self-governing homeland for the Palestinian people within the former mandate of Palestine. And that goes right back to their rejection in 1917 of the Balfour Declaration. And it includes, coming right up to date, it includes they didn't even reject President Obama's initiative, they simply walked away from it before it got anywhere. And they haven't only rejected the current US administration's initiative, they've rejected it without even hearing what it is. And this has been the pattern all the way through, a pattern of rejection and denial of any possibility of rights for the Palestinian people beyond what they have now. I want to illustrate that, I want to just read from a couple of quotes from the horse's mouth. And the first one, this is from Emil Ghouri, the secretary of the Arab Higher Committee, who said, "I do not want to impugn anyone but only to help the refugees. The fact that there are these refugees is the direct consequences of the action of the Arab states in opposing partition and the Jewish state. The Arab states agreed upon this policy unanimously, and they must share in the solution of the problem. Ralph Galloway, the former director of UNRWA, said the Arab states do not want to solve the refugee problem. They want to keep it as an open sore, as an affront to the United Nations, and as a weapon against Israel. Arab leaders don't give a damn whether the refugees live or die. This has been the pattern of rejection. And the Arab countries, and now the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, do not want a two-state solution. They're not interested in a two-state solution. They're interested in one thing only, and that is the destruction of the Jewish state, the dismantling and the destruction of the Jewish state. And again, the lack of support for a Palestinian state, well back in history and today, can be seen from these two quotes. First of all, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Abdul Rahman Azam, said, Transjordan was to swallow up the central hill regions of Palestine with access to the Mediterranean at Gaza. The Egyptians would get the Negev, the Galilee would go to Syria, except for the coastal part as far as Acre would be added to Lebanon. So they were talking about carving this precious Palestinian national homeland up. It was never a consideration that they would actually establish a Palestinian national homeland. And President Nasser of Egypt said, the Palestinians are useful to the Arab states. As they are, we will always see that they do not become too powerful. Can you imagine yet another nation on the shores of the Eastern Mediterranean? It has been the pattern. No two states, no liberation or freedom from the current situation that the Palestinians face at any stage. They have forced conflicts upon the Palestinians. The Arab nations since 1948 have sent armies into the land to attempt to annihilate the Jewish state. And that, of course, has brought death and destruction and suffering upon the Palestinians as well. And since then, they have imposed and inflicted and supported and funded and directed terrorism against the Jews by the Palestinians. And that has been going on for a long time and continues today. It continues today in Gaza, from the Gaza border, and in the West Bank, and in other parts of Israel. And where is this funded from? From the greatest state supporter of terrorism in the world, Iran, and from Qatar, of course, the Arab country. So this is a continuing problem. I have been there on the Gaza border. I've watched the suffering and the violence which has been attracted to the area by the Palestinian people, by Hamas, in effect. The West has a role in this. The West, with its greed and its lust for oil, has appeased the Arab countries and encouraged them. And we, by supporting this motion today, even though I don't agree with it, I think we are making a statement. And that statement is, we will no longer appease and support your retribution against the Palestinians. If this situation continues any further, then, as has happened in the past, the only people to suffer, Israel is not going to suffer as a result of this. The only people that will suffer are the Palestinians. They will continue to suffer, and I urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to get behind this motion and make your voice heard against the continued suffering of the Palestinian people. Thank you very much indeed.